Today, I'm going to tell you a story about anxious love. In my books and in my workshops and so forth, I try to be very vulnerable and open and honest about things that have happened in my life, just as a way to relate to you. And today's story is no different. I have done some horrible things in my life. And I know that doing horrible things doesn't make me a horrible person, but there's some things that I've either been very ashamed of or laughed very hard at as the years have gone by, just because it's kind of like, what? How? And one of these is a kind of a repetitive story about anxious love. If you are a highly sensitive person like myself, or if you've had trauma, abandonment, rejection, what have you in your past, it may be that you too have anxiety around loving. All right, so here's my story. I had a dog for 12 years named Corky and another dog before that, both of whom I loved very much. But this story I'm going to tell about Cali is applicable to those as well. And Corky had disability, and it was 12 years of taking care of him in very intense ways. And he finally passed about 4.5 years ago. And it was just, as if you've ever had to put down a dog, it was horrendous to put down Corky. And there was very, very deep grieving that went on about losing him. And after Corky passed, I said to myself, I cannot get another dog anytime soon. And I've heard people say this many times in many ways about animals, about relationships, about not wanting to get their heart broken again, about not wanting to love like that again. And I was having that similar feeling. I was just obviously still in love with Corky and in so much pain of losing him that I just said, no way. Well, guess what? A few weeks go by and I decide I really missed having the company and energy around a dog. So I started volunteering at the local animal shelter, walking dogs during the day and that kind of thing. And it was nice and it was beautiful. And I loved being helpful in that way. But as the days and weeks went on, I started really missing having a dog around. I was still in grief, but I'd find myself at night, flipping through Pet Finder, flipping through different places, looking at little dogs and puppies, and just kind of starting to daydream about if I were to ever have a dog again, what kind of dog would I want? And I was on Facebook, and I'm not sure, probably the algorithm, how it shows up what you've been looking at in the past on your phone or what have you. So I started seeing these posts for dogs at shelters and rescues and different people and so forth. And I came across this woman's post, and she lived at the shore in New Jersey, and she had several little puppies. And I just looked and, oh, they're adorable. Aren't all puppies adorable? And I just started to look and, kind of watching the videos. And then I reached out to her, just asking some questions because I never really seen a dog this cute before. And so we engaged a little bit, and I was still very firm on I'm not getting a dog. Well, a few weeks go by, and this was right at the time when my last book came out, Overcoming Toxic Emotions. And it was February, early February, when I was doing the search online and so forth. But night after night went by, and I was actually starting to feel free, I guess, that feeling of like grief was lifting. I didn't have responsibility, especially that responsibility that I had with Corky. And it was just kind of a new life because I had never been so free before. So I continued to look. It kind of became like my evening scroll time, just looking at dogs. And in my heart and in my thoughts, I thought, well, if I decided to get another dog sometime, I definitely want a healthy dog. I would want a dog that was friendly to other people because I'd had a chow in the past who was very protective of me. I wanted a dog who could jump and run and do things that normal dogs did because with Corky, it was a very, very different experience. So more days go by, more weeks go by. My book was about to come out on February 16th when the book became available, published in the world. I decided to take the day off and go to the shore just to take a walk on the beach. I love a winter walk on the beachfront. And so that's what I did. And on my way to the beach, I remembered that this woman had these little puppies and she too was at the shore. So I was on the phone with my friend in California and I was talking about this little dog. I was like, I don't know, no harm, just going and looking. I walk dogs, I'm around dogs. I think my heart can handle it and so forth. So I took myself down to the shore to see this little puppy. And this puppy was, not even 3, 4 pounds, just a tiny little thing. And it was cold outside. And I pull up to this woman's house, and her daughter comes out and has this puppy snuggled right next to her chest. And it was the most precious thing I'd ever seen. And I was like, oh my gosh, that feeling that you get in your heart, that pang when you see something that you love or something so precious, whether it's a baby or a deer or, well, in this case, a little puppy or what have you, just so incredibly pure and precious. Well, I got that feeling in my body. So I pet the dog and I was like, oh, isn't that cute? And then I went up to the shore to see some friends and take my walk. And I was walking on this beautiful, chilly day and I was promoting my book. I took a picture of the book in front of the water and I was feeling so proud and so accomplished that that was out in the world. And I called my friend back in California. I was like, I don't know. I can't stop thinking about this little dog. And so he was very encouraging because he too loves dogs and he himself has a very large heart. And he's like, I'll help you if you ever need help with this dog. I'll help you get this dog. And so I went back, and by this time it was dark. And I knocked on the door and I said, I'd like to take that puppy. And without even having the supplies, without even being prepared or what have you, I took the little dog in my lap where she rode the entire way home, an hour and a half home, her not knowing me not knowing her. And we were just driving together and she was really good. I'm sure she was really scared. And we get back to my house. Now, don't forget, this was during COVID. This was during that whole story that I shared in my audiobook on Weed and Street, or in season 4 here in the podcast, of all the madness and craziness that was going on at the house. And I get the little puppy home and I didn't know what to do with her because, as I said, I didn't have supplies. So I got some old rugs. I put it in the bathroom, put her in the bathroom, shut the doors, put some water down, and I went to bed. And I woke up and I opened the door and she was still there. And I was like, oh my God, I have a little puppy in my bathroom. Now, she did great through the night because probably she was exhausted and she was terrified. And I thought she did great because she was just the perfect dog that I had prayed for, right? Well, days start to pass and I start training her. And if you've ever had a puppy before, they are a lot of work. And one of my clients right now is going through this experience, and my heart goes out to you. I think she's on the other side though. And so we started the puppy training and we started to get to know each other. And I started to realize that this little puppy was very precious, but also, as puppies are, very needy and very loud. She barked a lot. She wouldn't sleep on her own after that first night. She wouldn't cage crate. She's a COVID puppy and she's used to having, 4 or 5 people around and a litter of her puppy mates with her all the time. And I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything, but she was a beautiful kind of distraction during COVID. I decided to put all of my energy into doing this dog right, not feeding the table food, really training all the tricks that I could, getting her as acclimated to me and disciplined as possible, loved as possible, etc. It was so overwhelming. And my heart was not ready for this. And here's the horrible thing, I put Cali for sale on Facebook Marketplace. Another friend of mine at the time also had a puppy, and she too was just pulling her hair out, going out of her mind. We're feeling like horrible people. I'm trying to discipline the dog, train the dog, trying not to yell at the dog, hating the dog, loving the dog, wanting to throw the dog in the river. Like, I know that sounds extreme, but that's where our brains go when we're in this amount of stress. And that's also where our brains go when our hearts are not open. It's like, what can I do to get out of this? And that's where I was. I spent weeks, at least a couple of weeks, with Callie on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, trying to find a co-parent, doing anything I could to get out of this relationship. Now, as I said, I love dogs. I've had dogs my whole entire life. I was scared. That's the bottom line. I was scared of opening my heart again to loving this little thing in the way that she needed and wanted to be loved. And when I tell you, Cali is everything that I had prayed for. She is friendly. She loves people. She's so sweet. She's cuddly. She loves to run and jump and play. She's healthy. She's got the most pure, beautiful eyes and soul of any dog that you've ever known. And my heart couldn't handle it for weeks. I won't even say months. I eventually did. I did have someone come to see her as a co-parent. I think that was the deal. And I had another woman come with her daughter to adopt Cali. Well, to be honest, to pay for Cali. Oh my God. And the woman and her daughter, of course, they fell in love with her. And then they left and she kept calling me. And then she got mad at me. She's like, you had no intentions of really getting rid of this dog. We had our heart set on her. And I don't blame her. She was mad because Callie was so precious and they wanted her. And I was in that push pull energy. And that push pull is sometimes how anxiety shows up. Sometimes it can show up as complete avoidance. Sometimes it can show up as, just kind of in denial of the whole thing. Or we just continue to shut our hearts down and be negligent. And I had to make a really conscious choice because that's what love is. When we're having anxiety in relationships, when we're having anxiety about loving, there comes a point where we have to make a choice. Love is a choice. I know around love, there's a lot of feelings. There's excitement, there's attraction, there's wanting to dote and the affection, there's joy, there's fear, there's curiosity. There's all kinds of feelings and thoughts that go on around love. And at some point, we have to make a choice. Am I going to love? And if you follow me on social media, I made the choice to love Callie. And once I did that, I fell so deeply in love with this dog, who is 4 years old today, that there was no turning back. And that's where the fear often kicks up for people is one, we feel like, can I make this choice every day, stay committed, stay loyal, stay true, stay loving? And the fear of, if I make this eternal choice, because love never dies, that if I make this eternal choice and something happens, can I deal with the overwhelming grief of heartbreak at that point? And I understand it's a very, very big choice. I don't judge anyone who has made a choice to not love, but I have sadness for them. There's a lot of us that subconsciously or unconsciously are choosing not to love in our friendships, in our relationships, in our jobs, in our just daily waking lives, because we're so afraid to get so connected. I don't even want to say the word attached, because that word in relationship has become, or in life, has become kind of taboo in a way, because we're not meant to be attached to things, because everything's temporary and we should learn to be detached and all that. But no, I think that there are some really, really wonderful ways that we can become attached. And that connection and that attachment is what nurtures us. Many of us are walking in the world feeling untethered. We're feeling disconnected. We're feeling not part of things, even in our own personal, intimate lives, even with ourselves, because we have shut down the channel of flow, this channel of energy flow that is love. When we talk about self-care and loving ourselves, it's not just a one-off. It's not just getting a massage. It's not just being kind to ourselves one day a week. It is choosing love every day, just the same way with Cali that I have to choose love. Now, I want to be completely frank here and clear. There's still many days I have to take Cali to the sitter. I need a break. There's many days where I think, oh my gosh, I don't have the energy for this today. There's sometimes where I'm like pushing her on the other side of the bed. I need space. We all need space sometimes, we need our personal, and Callie's a little bit of a Velcro dog in that way, a little separation anxiety. I don't love that, but I love her. And so managing our love, managing the way that we can stay committed to that, choose love, and also take care of ourselves is important in all relationships. A lot of times anxiety will show up when we're intimate with others. I know it has for me. That overwhelming feeling. And this is why I mentioned if you're a highly sensitive person, it can be difficult to understand what's really going on in our system when we are overwhelmed. Even a super positive, exhilarating, affectionate, loving, tender experience can open us so much, or we can feel it so much that we don't know how to move through that, because it feels really overwhelming is the only word I can think of. It feels so invigorating. It feels so alive, and we don't know what to do with it. And what we can do with it is just stay. Just stay. I'm often finding myself telling clients and myself, we don't have to do something all the time. And we don't have to stop. And as I said in my last podcast, it's not always about learning to say no. Can we stay? Can we stay in ourselves? Can we stay present in the moment and just apply the choice of love to what is? And if we can learn to do that, then we can stay committed. We can stay loyal. We can stay in love. We can stay in a higher vibration feeling of yes, we can stay. And yes, there is not the risk, the reality that we will have grief. We will have gut wrenching pain of the separation, the temporary separation of us and others, whether that's for a day, a week, a month, a lifetime. And that feeling is also incredibly challenging to hold. But if we stay and if we continue to choose love, then we can withstand it. To me, that is what we're doing here as human beings, experiencing this life, learning how to stay and choose love. In other words, learning how to keep our hearts open, learning how to lead from an open heart, learning how to be in love with ourselves, with nature, with each other, with the world, with this whole experience, saying yes to love and all that love brings with it. I am so glad that I said yes to Cali. I'm going to cry, not just because of Cali. I was going to cry just a moment ago, talking about holding that love even through the separation. But I love this dog so much. She has brought so much nurturing and connection and love and joy to my life. It's indescribable. And I know animals are, we think they're different than humans because it's such a nuanced, personal relationship, and they are so full of unconditional love and presence. And we get to witness that energy and vibration from animals that we often don't see in humans. But humans offer this for us too. And to be in receipt of that with her, to be able to witness that from her, and to just engage with that every day, even when she's at the sitters, even when we're separated, it's the most precious thing in my life. And I can say that about my relationships as well, my friendships, my personal relationships, my family, even in the separation, even in those who quote, we've lost. If we can keep choosing love and stay in that energy, loving, even though even though maybe they have chosen something else, even though may have passed, even though you may live miles and miles apart, even though a lot of different things could have happened in those relationships, then we haven't lost anything. And I know there's a very, very fine line in this grief, in this separation, in the love, because some of us have a hard time moving on. And it is hard to love again. It is hard to choose more love. But here's what I know about our hearts. They are so big. When we think about God, when we think about agape love, the unconditional love, it is limitless. And I think it is possible to continue loving and continue expanding our hearts and loving more. If you are separated from someone whom you love, you can still love them. There's people that I probably will never see again in my life that are living. There's people that I've had that have passed, many, many people who have passed. And I think that a lot of us have this idea that when a relationship has concluded in one way or the other, that we should stop loving, that we should somehow grieve and get over it and be done with that. And I don't believe that that's the way. It's okay to keep loving. It's the natural way, but we have to learn to also hold and manage the separation and that feeling of pain along with it. And I know someday with Cali, she's 4 today, someday she won't be here with me anymore. Or maybe I won't be here with her. And it will be a very, very deep feeling of separation. But that feeling of love will surpass it if I stay connected to it 100% every time. The feeling and the choice, that conscious connection to love, that's what lasts. So if you have anxiety about love, if you have anxiety about the overwhelming sensations that move through you, if you have unprocessed pain or trauma or even grief, then I want to encourage you to choose love for yourself in some capacity and to choose the time and the space to process what you need to process and to continue blossoming your heart. As I said, I've done horrible things and I've hurt people. And I also know that in a certain way, I was doing the best I could. And I'm sure you are doing the best you can. But when we do know better, then we want to do better. And the more that we understand about this energy of holding love and pain together, holding and choosing to stay in our bodies, to stay in our hearts, to stay in the consciousness, the more capacity that we'll have to love, to have peace and joy more and more every day. When we choose love, we have this idea and this expectation that it's going to last for a period of time or last forever, or we shouldn't do it, right? And there's this expectation around time and how long we're with someone or how long we had something. And, you know, how old were they when they passed? And we think we can understand, we're trying to protect ourselves in a certain way of, and setting up our own expectations of how long do I get for this thing. But when we come to the realization that time doesn't really exist, and if we've said yes to love, and when we open ourselves to the experience of all that is, time is irrelevant. It truly doesn't matter if you've loved for a day, for a year, for most of your life. I know the pain and the memories and the sensations are different, but it doesn't affect the quality of the love itself. Love is a powerful thing. And if we can get past that time issue or what we think that we deserve or going to get out of saying yes to this person or this animal or this experience in our lives, and just say yes to love itself, open ourselves to the thing itself, then we gain. And that gain not only helps us grow in our capacity to hold love and pain together and to have a full, rich life, but it imprints on us. It imprints on us like the sun imprints on our planet, like God's love imprints on our lives. It is life itself. It is birth. It is the genesis of everything. And so as we're working through, and why we want to work through and process our pains and our challenges of our past, is so that we can say yes and we can choose love, and we can reduce our anxiety because we're trusting ourselves, and we're committing to living an open-hearted life. If you resonate with any of this, I want to say I see you. And even though I'm telling you the story today about Cali because I want to and I can, I have plenty of other stories where I haven't been as successful in truly opening my heart, and have had to do so in the aftermath of relationships to make amends, to find the love and the grace for myself and for the other, to fall in love without getting to express that with others. And that in of itself can be painful. So I want us to practice this. And my course that I put on InsightTimer on regaining trust is a helpful way to practice this, learning how to trust ourselves, because this is fundamental in learning how to open our hearts so that we can say yes. Because when we trust ourselves, then we know that we can get through and move through anything that happens for us, anything that we experience. So I want to invite you to that if you need support there. Otherwise, you can do this work on your own. You can think through and witness yourself and the anxiety that you've had, and where, at what point were you waffling? Where were you shutting down? Where were you wanting to open your heart? If you weren't afraid, or if you weren't nervous about being hurt or being left or losing somehow. When we stay with ourselves, when we stay in that open-hearted energy of yes, receiving, thank you, we are connected. And when we're connected, we cannot lose. I love you all. And I thank you for hearing my story about Callie. She is healthy. She is well. She is beautiful. She is the love of my life, a love of my life. And I'm so grateful to have her. And I hope that you feel that way about something, someone in your life today as well. I'm Leah. It was great to be here with you. We'll be back next week. You can follow me on social media at Leah the Modern Sage, and I will see you very soon.